Hey guys, I'm just recording over some footage. I wanted to give you something to look at. This is Udon Thani. It's like a little marketplace area where there's like transformers. It's pretty cool. And this is like the biggest mall, Udon Central. It's not that big, but it's bigger than a lot of the areas in Isan's malls. Anyway, I didn't want to do a part two, but I thought I might as well. So we can't let toxic people win. And I said in my previous video that we should become, and I got this actually from AI because I was asking advanced AI some questions. And honestly, it's a great coach. Advanced AI, people might laugh at that idea, but I mean, it has, at least the advanced one, it has countless books and information on the web. Its advice is something to consider. And it said basically be a gray rock, give the most boring, the quickest, and dullest answers to toxic people. And that's the way we win. And just not giving a reaction. And I remember, like I said in my previous video, there were moments where I, was toxic to this one guy and he didn't give a reaction, and that stung more than anyone clapping back. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on a few things. Like, why do you think people are toxic? And, you can't escape it throughout the world. There's people always toxic. And I already know the answer, and I know where it stems from. And why do you think coworkers can be so toxic sometimes? I'll give you an example also. So I've been dealing with Filipinos, but I've also been dealing with this New York girl, a girl from New York. You would think that she is an ally, right? So we go first day orientation at the new school. Right off the bat, I'm like, hello, how are you? I'm like very professional, but very nice. And she doesn't just stay professional and nice. She's like this fake nice, like, hello, teacher Peter. Hello, like right off the bat. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like, okay, maybe she's just putting on a performance for the ties, whatever. Maybe she'll loosen up over time. So we start talking, blah, blah, blah. And, eventually we're alone, and we're away from all the ties and stuff. And she keeps calling me teacher Peter and putting on this fake ass smile as if she's like a tie. And for me, it was really disturbing because here we are in Isan and you're supposed to be an ally. And right off the bat, you're like incredibly guarded. So I'm thinking she'll loosen up. And I say, we're both from New York. Like we can drop the whole teacher Peter and teacher whatever. We could drop that. And she doesn't drop it. She continues. And it really bothered me. And, over time, what she started doing, I'm like, whatever. She doesn't want to be friends. What I didn't realize is that she's deeply insecure. Deeply insecure. And, we all have insecurities, right? But if we act on it, that becomes a problem. So for me, dealing with the Filipinos and now dealing with her, it's creating quite an interesting environment. I definitely will, I have to fight it out for my entire contract. But anyway, it's kind of crazy for me because it almost feels like high school, like childish behavior. Like, what is going on? And I try to give her a compliment, build rapport. I'm like, you really seem like a teacher. And she's like, that's because I am. Turns out she wasn't. She wasn't a teacher at all. She did like some YMCA volunteer youth program. Yeah, that's like non-formal teaching, maybe. Yeah, sure. I mean, that is such a stretch. Anyway, not realistic. And it's obviously a place of insecurity. So she, what she says to me is, I'm kind of venting to you guys because I want to know your thoughts. She's like doing all this competitive shit in the office, like saying about oh, it's so easy. This, for example, we're learning a new format for this government, document we have to submit. I was kind of struggling with it. If I'm being honest, I'm not, but to be honest, I'm doing great in everything else, but I was struggling with that and no big deal. I mean, right. I mean, if you're learning a new format, of course. And then she's like, oh, it's so easy. Clearly I'm trying to learn from the one guy. And she's broadcasting how easily she got it done. And it was just weird. And she looked at me with this smug smile. And every time she looks at me, it's with this smug smile. And it's the strangest shit. It really is. But anyway, I don't let it get to me. I'm like, if she wants to be competitive, if she wants to, whatever, that's her own insecurity. And then I figure out what she actually used to do because she actually broadcasted it in the Thai office, which was stupid. She was talking to her manager about her old job. And you know what her old job was before? Get ready. And listen, if we're going to play the game of who's superior, I definitely had a better job than this. But I'm whatever. I mean, that's stupid to compare. But it kind of explains her insecurity. What she said is, I was a barista at Starbucks. And oh my gosh, it was so toxic. And it's people are in cliques and stuff. And I'm like, that's exactly what she's doing now. She's carrying that same energy. So once again, we don't know what people are going through. And a lot of times these people are just insecure losers. And I'm not saying, listen, we all have insecurities once again. But, do you get to a point where you feel like you have to put others down like, I mean, if we're playing the put down game, I think I would win that game because, you're the one who was a barista. I at least had a decent job. I worked for the state, I worked for the government. So, anyway, if we're going to play the loser game, I definitely think your job was bottom of the barrel. But this is the same thing. And by no means, I'm not saying I was like some superstar in America. I had a decent job, though. I can't act like I didn't. But it wasn't like a really good job. But it was definitely better than a barista. So anyway, it's just kind of – so she has that same high school energy. And this is what happens, right, in this industry. You have people going from high school straight into college, so they still have the energy of high schoolers. And then they're going straight into the workplace. And the workplace for them is usually a gap year. So you're dealing – even though I've been doing this for a while at this point, you're dealing – and I've been studying education and such, but I don't broadcast this. Whatever, my results in the classroom prove it. But anyway, my point is she's broadcasting how she's used to be a barista, acting like it was the hardest job in the world. And don't get me wrong, I do think, a toxic atmosphere, that sounds very difficult, but she's carrying that same energy into workplace and being guarded. So I kind of understand her more, but it also reminds me of another guy. There was this one guy I met. Okay, I feel like I'm the only one open-minded in TEFL, and this is what drives me nuts. Remember this one guy. I'm going to just say his name. You don't know him. His name was Aaron. He was a guy who worked at Apollo when I worked there. And, he was very arrogant. He was an American, too. And this is why I say it's like a 50-50 coin flip with Americans. You really don't know. Like some of them they like to do the hierarchy and try to put you down. Turns out this guy was he was like a manager at a Target. Seriously, I'm not going to put you down, but if we really want to play that game, but whatever. Like I said. So there's some legitimate reasons for these people to feel insecure, but they're obviously acting still high school-esque in high school. They're acting like they're in high school. And, one day, it clicks within me. And I don't have it all figured out, don't get me wrong. But it clicks within me, and it did click within me, why I was doing toxic shit sometimes. And I was definitely not toxic a lot of times. But it was, due to usually insecurity or, if I was a toxic guy in the workplace, which I usually wasn't, in fairness, it was probably due to insecurity. And that's where it stems from. And one day it's going to click and they're going to cringe. And like I said, I don't have it all figured out. I'm still learning. And but for sure, it's going to click one day. And it's just unfortunate because I see it as blatantly obvious. And it seems like they don't see it or they don't want to accept it. And they're still in this high school kiddish mode. And eventually they're going to have to grow up out of that. And unfortunately, many people in the U.S. don't grow up out of that. And it's not until they hit 30s that they actually start to realize it. And sometimes not at all. Sometimes people fail to realize it. But what was my point? Oh, yeah. So this guy, he was gossiping, and everyone's gossiping about this dude who turns out he's reads one book every 2 weeks, which I think is pretty impressive. And, he has a master's in computer science, has a CELTA, which is really hard to get. And I met him, and he's a really cool dude, and he's from Brazil. He actually speaks in one of my videos. We hit it off. And everyone's gossiping about him. And the reason they're gossiping about him is because he doesn't get steamrolled by the cliques and hierarchies in TEFL. And you're going to deal with toxicity, trust me. And he doesn't let it happen. People say something, he'll be like, why did you say that? And he'll just roast them on this really deep level. Where does that stem from? He's a really smart guy. And the thing is, the guy, I remember he's like, don't even talk to me about that idiot. He's the worst teacher I've ever met. The dude literally has a CELTA. How can you say he's the worst teacher you ever met? In fact, they made me, when I first joined Apollo, I was I didn't realize I was his replacement, actually. They made me assess him and go into the room. And I didn't, and I watched him, and he was okay. In my opinion, he was okay. So it really blew my mind, how toxic this industry seems to be on average. And you could just do some Google search. You know what's funny, though? So many people in the TEFL industry, if you ask 10 random people about the toxicity and this stuff and you acknowledge it, 8 of them will gaslight you and act like it doesn't exist. The nice thing about my friend Iago, the Brazilian guy, is he actually acknowledged it. So that's what I say. Those people are your allies, the people who keep it real. So in the TEFL industry, cling to the people who keep it real. Don't open up to everyone, of course. Those are going to be your allies, the people you stay in contact with. Or maybe you would prefer to be in the cliques, in the more immature circles. I mean, that's up to you. Also, don't believe all the gossip. Do never believe all the gossip. I always take gossip with a grain of salt. I never take, I knew the guy myself. People were gossiping about him left and right, saying shit. And it was petty shit, just over little things. He showed one of his examples. He used raw meat as an example, which was not raw meat, but it was deli meat. And it really wasn't that weird. It was kind of unique. Yeah, it was kind of quirky, whatever. But like, is it worthy to be like bashing the guy who's using it? It's just like, it's so toxic, dude. So toxic. So anyway, why did I share that? Yeah, don't take the gossip. Try to find allies in your workplace. Realize that it's toxic. Realize that it stems from insecurity. Realize that these people might actually be the losers back home. And yeah, that's what I just wanted to share. And if you have any thoughts, comment below.